Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm developing Project Feel the Vibe full-time and it's been just over a month. Sprint 3 just wrapped up, so let's take a look at what's new. But first, a quick rundown of this project. I'm building this like a small studio project, but solo. Over 4 months, I'll complete 8 sprints, each focused on a specific theme like melee, combat, UI, or enemies. Hopefully by the end, I'll have a polished vertical slice that feels fun and complete, and a strong portfolio piece to land a design or QA role in the industry. With that being said, let's take a look at how I started these past 2 weeks. The first thing I did this sprint was sit down and revise my plan for the next 2 weeks. I initially created tasks for the entire 8-week project, but I've come to realize that while it's essential to have a solid plan, it's also crucial to be adaptable, since plans can change. I had to revise some tasks that became obsolete from previous sprints as I had inadvertently completed some of them, like for stance switching. I ended up repurposing them and shifted the focus to better suit the sprint goal. The goal for this sprint was to add ranged combat and flesh out the hype stance, as well as polish mood transitions. With planning out of the way, I sat down and did my sprint review for Devlog number 2, which surprisingly took longer than I thought. If I really wanted to, I could just use the default Ybot and not worry about making Milo. Compared to my first devlog, which was more of a sprint review where I just sat down and listed what I worked on, devlog number 2 took a different approach, similar to an actual YouTube devlog style video for a little bit of entertainment and storytelling. With the sprint review finally done, it was time to tackle the task I hadn't finished from the previous sprint, rebuilding Milo. He's bald now.
I'm sure it's not that noticeable.
This one took me quite a few days to finish, kind of unsurprisingly. This task could have been a sprint of its own. It pretty much took me 2 weeks to get to this point, but Milo now has a new outfit. This was definitely another learning experience as I'm not an artist or a 3D modeler. I followed the same course I used to create Milo, but since it didn't cover human clothing, I used different tutorials and concepts to find something useful. And the two that were most helpful were this guy, which showed a super simple way of creating clothes, and this guy, which was a bit more complex, but I managed to get something. I then tried to use the same concepts from the Blender course for texturing, and I ended up with this. I'm not sure why the seams are so pronounced. I think it has something to do with how I texture painted them, I'm not completely sure. But I can say that I'm not gonna worry about it right now, because I have a fun game to make and I can't be focusing on that right now. Also, I hesitated to give him hair because I had messed up with the previous model. I discovered that I was getting a bunch of errors because of the hair, and when I turned it off in the editor, it fixed them. So for now, Milo is bald. It was suggested to give Milo a hat, but here's the thing about that. Milo wears headphones, which serves as his primary weapon. The headphones act as a physical enhancement for Milo, which is determined by sound waves, or magic, or something. One way this could work is if I put the headphones around his neck, which I honestly might go with, and we'll just say he's able to hear the music because the headphones are a part of him, or magic, or something. It was also suggested that his headphones not only enhance him physically, but they also turn into his physical weapons since he wields different guns. Now, this is scope creep. Scope creep refers to unplanned changes to a project that would increase the time it takes to complete said project. But this idea opens up different possibilities. For instance, what if he had melee weapons instead of just using his fists? He would have a scythe and chill, daggers and hype, a hammer and heavy. The possibilities are endless, which is why I'm going to restrain myself for now. Anywho, The next thing I worked on was creating more animations for Milo.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the man? Get your ass on, boy.
Continuing the trend of figuring things out as I go, I tried my hand again at animating. This time, the moveset I wanted was a mix of punches and kicks. I didn't exactly have a solid plan for this one, so I just went with whatever felt right. I came up with an idea that the first attack would knock the enemy to the ground, bounce them a little, allowing the player to juggle them, and then finishing them off with a roundhouse kick. I really like the drop kick because it's exactly what I was thinking. I came up with the second attack on the spot. I wanted it to be a flurry of punches, kind of like in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I wasn't too sure about ending the combo with a roundhouse kick, but I went ahead and did it. I think I'll figure something out later. Creating the animations was pretty much the same as last time, figuring it out as I go, but then I had to implement it into my system, and that's when I realized the system sucked. While the combos worked fine for the chill stance, trying to create combos for hype wasn't as smooth and easy as I thought it'd be. So I had to spend a good amount of time reworking the combat system to better implement combos for each individual stance. With that working, I had one more thing to add to the combo. Hype is supposed to be fast and energetic. I wanted Milo to teleport behind the enemy when initiating the first attack. Setting this up was fairly easy, and now Milo is a speed demon. Secondly, I realized it would be cool if the player could hold the flurry of punches by holding down the attack input and releasing it to stop. Future implementation might require more energy when doing this. And that's it for the hype melee combat. The next thing I worked on was ranged combat. I wanted to incorporate ranged combat into the game with specific weapons for each mood, which could have a variety of uses. Chill uses a sniper, Hype uses an assault rifle, and Heavy uses a grenade launcher. Setting up the framework was simple. I now have scriptable objects that allow me to change the fire rate and velocity of the bullets. I'm not too worried about the visual effects and sound effects currently. After setting up the framework, I wanted to create the weapons for the two stances I implemented, so I first created the sniper profile and a placeholder prefab for the physical weapon. I could have tried my hand in Blender, but I didn't want to waste too much time, and I felt like that would have been a trial and error process. Instead, I made a quick prefab using Pro Builder and created a cool little sniper. I did the same thing for the hype stance and created a cool little assault rifle. On top of finishing these tasks, I realized the weapons shouldn't be visible all the time, so I created a new task that allowed for the weapon to only show when shooting. The final touch was making sure the weapon only fires when you can shoot, so it doesn't feel unresponsive when you press the shoot button and nothing happens. Following the sprint goal, which included polishing mood transitions, it was time to do a little bit of polish. Nothing too crazy. This includes a small particle effect that plays around his head when switching stances, a screen tint to reflect the mood, a small sound effect when switching stances, and a text indicator with some flavor text that fits the mood. And now for the finale of Sprint 3. The bread and butter that may bring the whole game together. I added music to the game.
I've been in and out my mind since I hit your phone. I've been counting up the times that I did you wrong. I just want you by my side when I get real gone. Feel it's been a little while since we got along. Yeah, we've been
First, I had to create a system that allows music to be changed and a way to categorize it for each mood. This one took a little bit of trial and error. The first iteration worked, but it lacked scalability and failed to account for multiple songs. Then, I had a problem with the music repeating one song and not cycling to the next. But now, we can drag in music specific to a mood and it'll resume the song from the point you switched, move to the next song in the list, crossfade smoothly, and the UI will update accordingly to the songs. I also refined the transitions to change the UI color for each stance. Now we're gonna talk about what went right for this sprint. I gotta say it again, I worked consistently on the project, minus taking Sundays off, of course. I completed all tasks again. I learned some new things about Unity while trying to make different test builds, things that I already knew, but I definitely won't forget again. FYI, you can't make a build if you have this line of text in your scripts. I created nice visual debugging tools, and my vision is coming together and I feel even more motivated. What went wrong for this sprint? Well, the YouTube video took longer than expected. Rebuilding Milo also took longer than I wanted it to. Some systems weren't as scalable as I thought they'd be, and a few tasks were redundant and needed some cleanup. Overall, the progress is going great for the project. Yes, a lot of it is unpolished and doesn't look the best, but that's fine. You have to start somewhere. One of the most important things is making sure you have something fun and functional before polishing. With that being said, maybe in the future I'll be able to ask for additional help once I have something solid put together. We'll see how things go. Until then, thank you for watching and following along. Also, thank you for 100 subs. That's a cool milestone. From Well Dressed Game Studio. We don't just dress to impress, we dress our games to stun. See you in the next devlog.